My name is Paisley Rogers. I'm 29 years old, and my family's farm has been rooted in Iowa soil for 5 generations. My mother used to say the land carried our blood, our sweat, and our dreams. I believed that with all my heart. 3 months ago, I thought we saved it. Our family's legacy, our home, the one thing tying us together after everything we'd lost. But now I know we weren't saving anything. We were just digging our own graves, one signature at a time. And the man holding the shovel was my father. I grew up believing my dad, Bill Rogers, was the strongest man alive, a pillar of our small community, the kind of person neighbors trusted without question. Even when my mom, Evelyn, passed away 3 years ago, he kept the farm running, kept us together. Or so I thought. But this past summer, the farm hit rock bottom. 2 years of brutal drought had left the fields cracked and dry, like the earth itself had given up on us. The bank sent foreclosure notices. Bill's voice turned hoarse from arguing with loan officers and suppliers. Every night, I'd hear him pacing the living room, whispering numbers under his breath like prayers he didn't believe in anymore. Finally, one humid August evening, he gathered me and my siblings, Caleb and Hannah, around the old oak dining table. His face was flushed, his hands trembling slightly. A sight so rare it made my stomach twist. "We've got one last shot," he said, voice thick with emotion. "The bank's breathing down our necks, and they won't wait another month. If we don't pay off the debt, we'll lose everything your mother and I built." Caleb frowned immediately, his mechanic's hands folded across his chest. "So what's the plan? Sell off some acreage? Talk to an investor?" Bill shook his head, his jaw tight. "No, selling land isn't an option. This farm stays whole, or it's not worth saving. I need you kids to mortgage your homes. Just for now. We'll pay it back after harvest." I remember the silence that followed, heavy and suffocating. My pulse thundered in my ears as his words sank in. Mortgage our homes? It felt reckless, terrifying. And yet, a strange kind of hope bloomed in my chest. Maybe, just maybe, we could save everything. Looking back now, I wish I'd known how wrong I was. If you've ever fought to protect something you love, share this story, leave a comment, because maybe someone out there will see the signs I missed. Bill reached across the table then, his eyes shining with something I couldn't read. "Trust me, kids," he said, his voice steady and full of conviction. "This farm will stay ours. I'll make sure of it." Those words should have been comforting. Instead, they still echo in my mind like a warning I didn't hear in time. Caleb was the first to speak after Dad's bombshell. And of course, he didn't hold back. "Are you out of your mind?" he snapped, his voice sharp enough to cut through the heavy silence. "You want us to risk our own homes for your debt? That's not saving the farm, Dad. That's throwing good money after bad." Caleb's always been the blunt one, the protector. At 33, he's been looking out for Hannah and me ever since Mom died. It's like he inherited her strength, but without her softness. "Where she soothed," Caleb challenged. Hannah, the youngest at 26, flinched at his words. She reached across the table, her slender fingers clutching his wrist. "Caleb, please, don't talk to Dad like that. This farm is all we have left of Mom." Her voice cracked on the last word, and my chest tightened. I've always been the one in the middle, literally and figuratively. The middle child, the mediator, the fixer. Since Mom's death, that role has consumed me. I've been the one making sure birthdays were celebrated, bills were paid, and Dad didn't drown in grief. And now, I was supposed to help him save the farm. Caleb shook Hannah's hand off, his jaw tight. "Mom's gone, Hannah. No amount of land or crops is going to bring her back." His voice softened for a moment. I loved her too. But risking your house, risking Paisley's, that's insane. Hannah's eyes filled with tears, her lower lip trembling. She wouldn't want us to give up. She always said this farm was our legacy, our future. Don't let her dream die. Dad chose that moment to speak again, his timing perfect, like he'd been waiting for Hannah's words to set the stage. "Your mother did believe in this land," he said, his tone low and reverent. "Every day she poured her soul into it. When she got sick, she made me promise I'd keep it whole, keep it in our family no matter what." He glanced around the table, his eyes glassy. "I can't do that alone. I need my kids to stand with me." The weight of his words pressed down on me like a stone. I thought of Mom's laughter echoing through the farmhouse, the smell of her pies cooling on the windowsill, the way she'd lean into Dad like he was her safe harbor. I swallowed hard, fighting back tears. "If this is what it takes to keep the farm," I said softly, I'll do it." Hannah nodded immediately, relief washing over her face. "Me too." All eyes turned to Caleb. His fists were clenched, knuckles white. After a long, tense moment, he exhaled sharply and scribbled his signature on the papers, glaring at Dad like he wanted to burn a hole through him. The decision was made. As I watched the ink dry, a strange unease twisted in my gut. The papers were signed. Our futures were in his hands. And for the first time, I saw something in my father's eyes I couldn't name and didn't dare to question. For a little while, it felt like we'd done the right thing. The bank was paid, the foreclosure notice torn in half and stuffed into the trash like a bad dream. Dad even seemed lighter, more like the man he'd been before Mom got sick. He walked with a spring in his step, his shoulders less weighed down by worry. "This year's gonna turn around, you'll see," he told us one crisp September morning, his voice carrying across the barnyard. "We'll have a strong harvest, pay off what we owe, and next year we'll be in the black again." I wanted so badly to believe him. Hannah did too. She practically glowed with hope whenever Dad talked about the future. Even Caleb relaxed, though his arms stayed crossed whenever Dad got too optimistic. For a brief moment, there was relief in our home. Laughter crept back into family dinners. I even started sleeping through the night again. But then, the cracks began to show. At first, it was little things. Dad started disappearing more often, always with a quick explanation. Bank meeting, equipment supplier issue, just handling business. When I asked for details, he brushed me off with a distracted smile. It didn't seem odd at first. Running a farm is complicated. But then he began dressing differently. Cleaner, sharper. He bought a new watch, a sleek, expensive-looking thing that gleamed in the sunlight. "Got it on sale," he said when Hannah asked about it. She accepted that answer without hesitation. Caleb did not. "Funny how Dad's broke one minute and fancy the next," Caleb muttered to me later. The tension between them grew fast. Caleb started combing through the farm records in the evenings, frowning at columns of numbers and muttering under his breath. "These numbers don't add up," he said one night, slamming the ledger shut. "Either Dad's cooking the books or someone's bleeding us dry," I snapped back, harsher than I meant to. "Caleb, you've been suspicious since day one. Maybe you're just looking for problems that aren't there." He gave me a look, sharp, disappointed, and walked away without another word. That same week, I ran into Mr. Callahan, our neighbor, at the feed store. He leaned on his cane and lowered his voice, eyes darting around like he didn't want to be overheard. "Paisley," he said, his tone serious, "your daddy's been at the realtor's office more than the fields lately. Watch him." My stomach dropped, but I forced a laugh. "Probably just sorting paperwork." Mr. Callahan didn't smile back. I didn't tell Caleb. I didn't want to add fuel to his fire. Hannah wouldn't have believed it anyway. She clung to Dad's every word like gospel. That night, as I gathered laundry, I noticed Dad's jacket tossed carelessly over the back of a chair. When I picked it up, a faint scent clung to the fabric. Sweet, floral, and unmistakably feminine. I froze, my fingers tightening on the worn fabric. I didn't know it then, but that scent was the first trace of the woman who would steal everything from us. The perfume scent haunted me for days. It wasn't Mom's. She'd worn simple lavender soap and lotion. Never anything sweet or heavy like that. Every time I caught a whiff of it lingering in the laundry room, unease coiled tighter in my stomach. One evening, as I was walking past Dad's office, I heard his voice. Low, urgent, and nothing like the booming confidence he usually projected. I froze in the hallway, my back pressed against the wall. "No, Melissa, just be patient," he was whispering. "Once it's all done, we'll have the cash. I promise. Florida will be perfect for us. Florida, Melissa, cash." The words clanged in my head like church bells. I stepped into the doorway. "Dad, who's Melissa?" He spun around so fast he nearly dropped the phone. "Paisley!" His laugh was forced, brittle. "It's, just farm business. A supplier from out of state. Nothing to worry about?" The explanation sounded like it had been plucked from thin air, but I nodded slowly, pretending to accept it. Inside, doubt burned like acid. Later that night, I told Caleb about the phone call. His reaction was immediate. "Melissa, that's not a supplier. That's a girlfriend." His tone was flat, bitter. I knew it. I knew he was hiding something. "Caleb, we don't know that," I said. Though even as I spoke, the image of Dad's nervous laugh replayed in my mind. "We need to dig, Paisley. Check his accounts. Follow him if we have to. If we sit on our hands, we're gonna lose everything." Before I could answer, Hannah stormed into the kitchen, her face red. "Are you too serious right now?" she shouted. "After everything Dad's done for us, you're accusing him of what? Having an affair? Selling us out?" "Hannah, calm down," I said, raising my hands. "No," she snapped, tears glistening in her eyes. "You're tearing this family apart with your suspicions. Mom would be ashamed of you both." Her words sliced through me, leaving guilt and anger tangled together. She ran out before I could respond, the screen door slamming behind her. The next day, I stopped by the feed store again and ran into Mr. Callahan. His face was etched with concern as he pulled me aside. "Paisley," he said quietly, "that Melissa woman? Folks have seen her with your daddy. And not at church picnics if you catch my drift." I felt my knees go weak. "Are you sure?" He nodded grimly. "Saw them myself last week." He's courting her like a young buck. It was the confirmation I didn't want but couldn't ignore. That night, I waited until Dad left the house, then grabbed my keys and followed his truck at a distance. My heart hammered with each turn he took, every red light we stopped at. Finally, he pulled into a dimly lit parking lot on the edge of town. I killed my headlights and parked far enough back to stay hidden. And then I saw her. A woman, tall, blonde, striking, slid into Dad's arms like she belonged there. He kissed her, tender and lingering. My breath caught in my throat. My hands shook against the steering wheel. Melissa wasn't just real. She was the beginning of our undoing. The morning started out like any other. A pale gray sky, mist curling low over the fields. I drove to the farm early, thinking maybe Dad and I could have one of those quiet mornings together like we used to. Just the two of us fixing fences and drinking burnt coffee. But when I turned down the gravel road, my stomach dropped. 2 large moving trucks were parked in the yard, and a crew of strangers was hauling our farm equipment into them like they owned the place. Tractors, tools, even Mom's old rocking chair from the porch, all being loaded like we were a forgotten memory. I slammed the truck into park and jumped out. "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" A man in a pressed button-down shirt turned toward me, clipboard in hand. "You must be Miss Rogers," he said, his tone polite but detached. "We're with the real estate firm. The property's been sold. New owners take possession today." The words didn't make sense. They didn't fit. "Sold?" My voice cracked. "No, there's been a mistake. This is our family farm. It's not for sale." He gave me a look, pity mixed with impatience. "Ma'am, the paperwork is finalized. The sale closed yesterday afternoon. You should have been notified." My ears rang. I staggered back a step, the cold morning air suddenly suffocating. "Notified," I whispered. There was only one person who could have signed those papers. I didn't remember driving to Caleb's house. One moment I was standing in the yard, and the next, I was pounding on his front door like the world was ending. Caleb yanked it open, bleary-eyed and shirtless. "Paisley?" "What?" "He sold it," I choked out. "Dad sold the farm." Within minutes, we were both at Hannah's place. She stood in her doorway, wrapped in a blanket, confusion on her face. "No," she said, shaking her head. "No, Dad wouldn't do that. He promised us." Caleb's voice was harsh. "The realtor said the sale closed yesterday." "Go ahead, keep defending him now." Hannah's hands trembled. "There has to be some mistake. Maybe he had to sign something for legal reasons." I didn't know what to say. My voice was gone, and then my phone buzzed. A new voicemail notification. My hands shook as I played it on speaker. Dad's voice filled the room, calm and distant. A stranger's voice. "You kids will understand one day," he said flatly. "Don't come looking for me." The message ended with a cold, empty click. Hannah crumpled to the floor, sobbing. No. He wouldn't just leave us." She rocked back and forth, whispering, "He loves us. He loves us," as if saying it could make it true. Caleb's face went red with fury. He punched the wall so hard, his knuckles split, leaving a dark smear of blood against the drywall. "I'm gonna find him," he snarled. "I swear to God I'll hunt him down and drag him back here." I couldn't even breathe. Caleb stormed into the small office where Hannah kept her bills and banking records. A minute later, he came out, holding a printed bank statement. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely keep the paper steady. "Look at this," he said, his voice low and dangerous. My eyes scanned the page, and my blood went cold. Every cent from the farm sale, hundreds of thousands of dollars, had been withdrawn in cash the night before. He hadn't just sold our home. He'd taken everything and vanished. The days after Dad vanished were a blur of chaos and heartbreak. The bank called first, reminding us, in cold, professional voices, that our mortgage payments were due. It didn't matter that we'd signed those loans to save his farm. Now, with the farm gone, we had no way to cover the debt. Hannah's voice trembled as she spoke to the bank representative. We just need time. Please. But there was no mercy. By the end of the week, foreclosure notices were nailed to our doors. The three of us were on the brink of losing our own homes, the very thing we'd risk to keep our legacy alive. As if that wasn't enough, the gossip mill roared to life. At the diner, people fell silent when we walked in. At church, heads turned and whispers followed us down the aisle. Bill Rogers ran off with some woman. Sold the place right out from under his kids. Always knew he had a streak of selfishness. Each word was a dagger. Hannah refused to believe it. They don't know him like we do, she said, her face blotchy from crying. Dad wouldn't just abandon us. There has to be another explanation. Caleb wasn't buying it. His anger simmered hotter each day. Open your eyes, Hannah. He did abandon us. He took the money and ran, plain and simple. Hannah covered her ears like a child. Stop saying that. While Hannah spiraled, Caleb and I channeled our grief into action. Caleb tapped a friend he knew at the county clerk's office to trace the property sale and any new purchases tied to Dad's name. 3 days later, Caleb burst into my kitchen, a manila folder in hand. His eyes were wild, almost manic. Got him, he said. I opened the folder and felt my stomach twist. There it was in black and white, a deed for a waterfront property in Florida, purchased in full. Cash, no mortgage, no paper trail except for the bare minimum, and listed as a co-owner, Melissa Carter. My throat closed. Melissa wasn't just a fling. She was his partner. In every way that mattered. Hannah read the document and shook her head violently. No, this doesn't mean anything. Maybe he bought it for us. Maybe it's some kind of investment to help rebuild. Caleb laughed bitterly, a sound that chilled me. Yeah, sure. He's sitting on a beach, sipping margaritas, and plotting how to save us. Get real, Hannah. She flinched like he'd slapped her. I won't believe it. Not until he says it himself. Caleb's fists clenched. Fine, then we'll go ask him. Hannah's eyes went wide. You're going to Florida? Damn right we are, Caleb growled. He thinks he can disappear. He's wrong. I looked at Hannah, silently begging her to come with us. But she turned away, hugging herself. I can't, she whispered. I can't face him. Her refusal stung, but I understood. Caleb turned to me, his jaw set. You in? My voice shook, but I didn't hesitate. Yeah, I'm in. As we packed our bags that night, one thought burned through my mind. We were going to Florida, and we weren't coming back without answers. The Florida sun was merciless, beating down on us as Caleb and I turned into the long, palm-lined driveway. I'd imagined this moment 1,000 times on the drive here, but nothing could have prepared me for what I saw. The house wasn't just a home, it was a palace. White stucco walls gleamed in the sunlight, flanked by tall glass windows that reflected the endless blue of the ocean beyond. A wraparound deck overlooked a private beach where a pair of lounge chairs sat, untouched and perfect, like a scene from a travel brochure. My breath caught in my throat. This can't be real, I whispered. Caleb's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. Oh, it's real, he said, his voice dark and hard. This is where all our sacrifice went. While we're drowning in debt back home, he's living like royalty. I stared at the mansion, my chest tight. The image of our empty barns and stripped-down farmhouse flashed in my mind, a cruel contrast to the lush paradise before me. Then the front door opened. Dad stepped out, wearing khaki shorts and a loud Hawaiian shirt, a drink with a tiny umbrella in his hand. He looked tan, relaxed, younger, even, like the weight of responsibility he'd carried for decades had evaporated in the warm Florida sun. And then she appeared. Melissa glided out after him, her golden hair catching the light. She laughed, tossing her head back, and placed her hand possessively on his arm. The sound of her laughter drifted across the yard, sharp and mocking. Caleb's entire body went rigid. Oh, hell no! He slammed the truck into park and jumped out, his boots hitting the driveway with a thud. Caleb, wait! I scrambled after him, my heart pounding. Dad! Caleb's voice was a thunderclap cutting through the idyllic scene. Dad turned, startled. His face registered shock, then hardened into something unreadable. Caleb, Paisley, what the hell are you two doing here? Melissa's smile faltered for just a second before she straightened, her expression turning cold and territorial. Caleb didn't slow down. "We're here because you stole from us!" His voice boomed, drawing the attention of a couple walking along the beach. "You sold the farm, emptied the accounts, and vanished like a damn coward." Melissa's fingers curled tighter around Dad's arm. "Bill," she said smoothly, "maybe we should take this inside." Caleb ignored her, jabbing a finger at Dad. "Do you have any idea what you've done to us? Hannah's at home, breaking apart because she still believes in you. Paisley lost her house. We're about to lose everything because of you." I stood frozen a few feet behind Caleb, my pulse roaring in my ears. I wanted to scream, to cry, to run. But all I could do was stare at my father and wonder if I even knew him anymore. Bill's face remained unreadable, but there was no remorse in his eyes. Only a cold, flat calm. "I gave my whole life to that farm," he said finally, his voice even and unhurried. "Every damn day since I was 18. I worked until my hands bled, until my back gave out, until I couldn't see straight from exhaustion." He took a long sip of his drink, the ice clinking against the glass. "And for what? To end up buried under debt, just like my father before me. To watch you kids sacrifice yourselves the same way." Caleb's voice cracked with rage. "We chose to fight for the farm, Dad. We did it for Mom, for our family." Dad's mouth twisted into something like a sneer. "Your mother's gone, Caleb. All that's left is the land, and land doesn't love you back." I finally realized that before it was too late. I deserve to live before I die. The words slammed into me like a physical blow. Melissa stepped forward then, her heels clicking against the deck. Her expression was infuriatingly smug, like she'd been waiting for this moment. "You're adults," she said sweetly, her tone laced with condescension. "It's time to grow up and let go. The farm was just land. Move on." Caleb's entire body shook with fury. "Land?" His voice was a raw snarl. "That was Mom's dream, you heartless!" I grabbed his arm before he could lunge at her. "Caleb, don't!" I cried, tears streaming down my face. Melissa smirked, unbothered. "See? This is why Bill needed a fresh start. You two are stuck in the past." Dad didn't flinch, didn't step in to defend us. He just stared, his face impassive as if we were strangers trespassing on his perfect new life. "This conversation's over," he said finally. "Go home, make new lives for yourselves." "That's what I'm doing." My breath caught. "Dad," I whispered, my voice breaking, "we trusted you. We risked everything because we believed in you." For a split second, I thought I saw hesitation flicker across his face, a ghost of the man I'd once called my hero. But then it was gone, replaced by a steely finality. "I never asked you to," he said coldly. It was a clean cut, sharper than any blade. Caleb's breathing turned ragged, his fists clenched at his sides. "You're dead to me," he spat, his voice trembling with fury. I couldn't speak. My heart felt hollow, shattered into pieces too small to ever put back together. We turned and walked away. Behind us, Melissa's laughter rang out, light and cruel, carried on the warm ocean breeze. With every step, I realized the truth I'd been too afraid to face. The man on that deck wasn't my father anymore. He was just the stranger who destroyed us. The drive back from Florida was silent, heavy, and suffocating. Caleb gripped the steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles were pale, his jaw locked as though he were holding back words that might burn the world down if spoken. I sat beside him, staring blankly out the window, watching the blur of highways and nameless towns pass by. My throat ached from holding back tears, and my heart felt like it had been carved out and left somewhere on that Florida deck, alongside Melissa's cruel laughter. Neither of us spoke for hours. Every mile that brought us closer to home also brought us closer to the wreckage waiting there. The debts, the gossip, the hollowed-out life we now had to face. The fallout at home. When we finally pulled into the driveway of what used to be our family farm, the sight hit me like a punch to the chest. The barns were empty, their wide doors hanging open like gaping mouths. The fields, once vibrant and full of life, were now stripped bare. A sold sign stood planted at the edge of the property, bright and new, as if mocking us. Hannah was waiting for us on the porch of her small house. The moment she saw our faces, her expression crumbled. "No," she whispered, shaking her head as tears welled in her eyes. "Tell me he didn't—" I couldn't find the words. Instead, I simply nodded, my lips trembling. Hannah let out a broken sob and collapsed onto the porch steps, covering her face with her hands. I told myself, I told myself he'd never do this to us. Her voice cracked like glass. He's our father. He's supposed to protect us. Caleb's anger flared again, sharp and hot. Protect us? He sold us out. Every damn penny is gone, Hannah. He's living it up on a beach while we're standing here with nothing. Hannah looked up, her face streaked with tears. There has to be some reason. Maybe he was forced. Maybe Melissa, stop. Caleb's shout startled both of us. He was trembling, his chest heaving. You didn't see him, Hannah. He wasn't forced into anything. He chose this. He chose her. He looked me in the eye and told me to move on, like we were nothing to him. Hannah crumpled again, sobbing so hard her whole body shook. I sank to my knees beside her and wrapped my arms around her, even though my own tears were streaming freely now. For a long time, the three of us stayed there on the porch, one consumed by rage, one drowning in grief, and me, caught somewhere between them, trying desperately not to fall apart completely. In the days that followed, the reality of our situation became painfully clear. Without the farm, we had no income to cover the debts tied to it. My own home was tied up in those loans, too. Within weeks, I was forced to pack up and move into a cramped one-bedroom apartment in town. It was all I could afford. Caleb threw himself into work with a neighboring farmer, but even that didn't fill the gaping hole left behind. He stopped answering most of my calls and avoided Hannah altogether. I knew his anger wasn't just at Dad. It was at himself for not seeing it sooner, for not stopping it. Hannah returned to her job teaching at the local school. She smiled for her students, but at night she sat alone in her house, grieving quietly. I visited when I could, but she seemed like a ghost of herself, wandering through a life she didn't recognize anymore. The town wasn't kind to us either. Rumors spread quickly, twisted into cruel stories about how we'd lost everything. Some people pitied us. Others smirked behind our backs, enjoying the drama like it was a show for their entertainment. It was humiliating, but what hurt most wasn't the whispers or even the financial ruin. It was the silence from Dad. No calls, no letters, not even a single word of remorse. It was as if he'd erased us from his life completely. One evening, as I packed the last box from my old house, I paused by the edge of the field. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the land we'd fought so hard to save. I knelt down and scooped a small handful of soil into a wooden box I'd brought. The dirt was cool and rich, smelling faintly of rain and crops, and all the memories tied to this place. It wasn't much, just a handful of earth, but it was the only piece of the farm I could keep. As I closed the box, my heart ached. We saved the farm, I whispered, my voice breaking. Or at least we thought we did. But we couldn't save the man who was supposed to stand beside us. Tears blurred my vision, but I didn't wipe them away. I stood there for a long time, staring at the horizon until the last light faded. Later that night, sitting alone in my tiny apartment, I placed the box of soil on the windowsill. It was a reminder of who we were, what we'd lost, and what we had to rebuild. I thought back to the very beginning, to the frantic days when we'd fought to keep everything together. Back then, I'd believed saving the farm would save him too, but now I understood the truth. In the end, we didn't just lose the farm. We lost our father too.